Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to yet another episode of Discovering Steven Universe. Today the episode I'm going to be talking about is Lars and the Cool Kids. And this episode was weird, but in a good way. So let's get into some of my favorite parts of the episode, starting with the relationship with Lars, or rather between Steven and Lars. I mean, up until now, with the exception of Tiger Millionaire, when Lars fell in love with the character that Steven was playing, not knowing it was Steven, obviously, Lars has pretty much always been a jerk to Steven. And, I mean, Steven even calls him out on it. Like, we see that Steven is not as naive as he portrays himself to be. He just always tries to find the good in people, clearly, like his mother does. Like, his mom, Rose Quartz, found the beauty in this moss that eats people, or at least is alive. Apparently it didn't eat people because the kids were still alive at the end. But anyway, yeah, I just really liked that aspect, and the fact that we got to see some character development from both Steven and Lars, really. And they made Lars an actual sympathetic character, and I liked that. Because I was honestly kind of worried that Lars was just going to be this one-note character that was just always a jerk, never had any redeeming qualities, other than he got sad one time when his hero knocked a drink out of his hand. But yeah, I just really enjoyed how they did that. Now, and this was going to be weird, my second favorite part of this episode was the Cool Kids. And mainly just because of how strange they were. And that may be mostly the 31, almost 32-year-old me looking at these characters and just being so confused and thinking, wow, they're really weird. But for all I know, that could be how teenagers act nowadays, or I don't know. I'm sure when I was a teenager, either I or people I knew acted that way in some form, but it just, where I am now, it seems so weird. But at the same time, I really enjoyed that. It gave us these characters that, while we don't really learn much, if anything, about them, like the only one we learn anything about is the one with the sunglasses, and that's that his dad is the mayor, I think it is, of Beach City. So yeah, I just found that rather interesting. But yeah, I am admittedly curious to see whether or not these characters will make any return appearances. Now, I can only assume that they will, because it seems like pretty much every relatively minor character has appeared at least once more since their original appearance. So, I mean, for all I know, these first, however many episodes, maybe going up to the 20th episode or more, it's hard to say, could be universe building overall. It's like, each one, they give us like that little sample of story, a little sample of backstory. Like with this one, we get more information on Rose Quartz. The moss blooms into these blooms that are, like, they symbolize Rose Quartz. They symbolize the jewel in Steven's belly button. And at the same time, they give us just a few more characters to know, a few more characters to meet that we've never known before. Sometimes it's just one character, sometimes it's a few of them. But at the same time, I mean, that's pretty much must be it. They must be doing a lot of universe building in these first episodes, however many episodes that'll be, and for all I know, it may never actually stop. Like, they may actually structure the show in a way that even when things really get rolling and we maybe start to get more of a storyline involving Garnet, involving Amethyst, involving Pearl, that we'll still be getting more of that universe building, even with just like a few characters that just appear that we haven't known before. So yeah, I'm really, really interested to see where that goes. Now, moving on from there, as for an annoyance with the episode, and I think it's pretty easily explainable, but at the same time, now first of all, I did think it was funny that Pearl was able to materialize some yellow police tape that, out of nowhere that they used. It was just like, okay, no one will dare cross these because humans have an aversion to yellow tape for some reason. It's like, kind of an old TV trope. But, when Steven, Lars, and the other kids come around to that area, well, basically after we see the crystal gems at the beginning of the episode, they don't appear anymore afterward. Like, I would have thought that when they said they were going to figure out a way to get the moss back on top of the hill, that they would possibly still be there trying to get that figured out. Or at the very least, knowing that, and I don't know the extent to which Garnet's powers actually work, obviously, but I would think that Garnet would have been able to see that the moss was going to pose a threat to Steven and other people, or she could have seen something like that going on. Maybe not. Like I said, I don't know to the extent to which her powers actually work. But it bothers me that no one, not a single one of the crystal gems, appeared at all throughout the rest of the episode. Unless you kind of count Rose Quartz in the sense that, she sort of was there symbolically when the moss bloomed. And obviously through Steven. But yeah, that just seems really strange to me. Now, obviously, had one of them been there, the story couldn't have gone in the direction it did. And Lars and Steven wouldn't have had that moment at the end, which was adorable, with them putting, their hands on each other's chest. That was adorable. And then, of course, Lars is just kind of like, okay, that's enough. Because that's how his character is, but yeah. Yeah, there you go. That's my annoyance, although I can understand why it happened that way. Now, as for my overall thoughts on this episode, I honestly really liked it. Like I said at the beginning, it was weird, and that one aspect of the plot did bother me. But again, that's just my personal opinion on it. That doesn't necessarily mean it's something wrong with the plot, obviously. So yeah, I honestly thought this was a good episode. Not necessarily as good as the last few. Like, the last few were just phenomenal, but it was still really good, and I loved the character development that we got from this episode. Absolutely. And I hope that we get some more of that from other secondary characters in the show. I hope that they become more of an active presence in the show, other than just being, like, one-off jokes, essentially, like with in the last episode when Steven got really old and was at the donut shop and the characters just kind of freaked out at him. That was just kind of a side joke, but getting to see more of these characters like Lars, like Connie, especially Connie, and just them becoming more of a real staple of the show, more of a staple of Steven's life, in addition to the crystal gems and the missions they go on, obviously. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this episode, Lars and the Cool Kids. Now, if you have any of your own favorites, some of your own annoyances, and as always, even some quotes you might have in mind, I'm finding it hard to really pick out any specific quotes from the episodes anymore, just because of how short they are, and sometimes they just don't have any real phrases that catch you all that much. If I were to pick something like a quote, though, I would have to say that it's the moment when Steven yells at Lars, especially when Lars makes a comment about Steven's mom, and we find out that I now that I think about it, I didn't know this. Like, Steven never got to see his mom at all, or at least that's the way he said it. I don't know if she died after he was born. According to Greg Universe, she gave up her physical form so he could be born. So maybe she did die after or before he was actually born. So for all I know, his eyes, he literally never laid eyes upon his own mom. So yeah, just that moment right there was just amazing, and that short conversation between Lars and Steven. Again, I don't have the quote, but that would be the closest to a pick for quote of the episode that I could possibly come up with. But okay, those are my overall thoughts. Like I was saying before I went on another tangent, please leave your thoughts on this episode down below in the comments. I'm definitely looking forward to those. And I think I've watched 5 or 6 episodes tonight, and as much as I wish I could marathon on more, I'm going to have to end it for tonight. Of course, these episodes will be coming out however frequently I decide for them to do so. But yeah, I will see you all next time for the next episode of Discovering Steven Universe. Forgot to bring up the name so I can name it to you, but it will as always be at the end of the credits, so you can know if you don't already. So until next time everyone, I'm PapaKenn, and Alonzi!